All right, get ready to dive into a world that's probably way more interesting than you'd think. We're talking about selling fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, it's something we all see but don't really think about too much.
Exactly. We've got a stack of career guides, interview tips, industry reports, all that good stuff.
It's fascinating because it's one of those professions that often flies under the radar. I mean, we see those beautiful fruit stands, grab a ripe avocado, but most of us don't really consider all the work that goes into it.
Right, like there's got to be more to it than just knowing the difference between a Red Delicious and a Gala apple.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. We actually found this career guide, Fruit and Vegetables Specialized Seller, and let me tell you, it's way more dynamic than you might think.
Really? Like what?
Think about it, customer interactions, managing inventory so everything stays fresh, and even some marketing skills.
Wait, hold on. Marketing. You're telling me those perfectly stacked mangoes are strategically placed to catch my eye.
You got it. This guide really emphasizes that it's not just about stocking shelves, it's about creating an experience for the customer.
Okay, so these sellers are like the sommeliers of the fruit and veggie world.
Exactly. The way the produce is displayed, how much the seller knows about all the different types, even if they can recommend the perfect pepper for your next dish, it's all part of their strategy.
Wow, I never would have thought. This guide also breaks down different career stages, right? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty interesting progression. So this guide, it uses this example of an aspiring seller. Let's call her Sarah. Entry-level Sarah. She's all about the basics.
Okay, so, like, what kind of basics are we talking?
She's helping customers, working the cash register, making sure the displays look good, that kind of thing. But then she levels up to junior seller and things get a bit more interesting.
Junior seller Sarah. I
Mm.
love the sound of that. What's she up to now?
Now she's got more on her plate. She's managing inventory, which is a big deal because no one wants to buy a carton of moldy strawberries, right?
I can only imagine.
And on top of that, she might even get to use her creativity to design some of those eye-catching displays.
Oh, that's cool. So she's like the architect of deliciousness, building those amazing pyramids of fruit. What about the pros, the ones who've seen every type of dragon fruit and rambutan there is? What do they do?
By then, Sarah's a senior seller, basically running the show. She's training new hires, analyzing what's selling well, and get this, negotiating with suppliers.
Hold on, negotiating. Are we talking about those high-stakes food auctions I've heard about?
Haha, maybe not quite. But this guide really stresses that having a good relationship with suppliers is so important, especially now that more and more people care about where their food comes from.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just about grabbing the shiniest apple anymore. People want to know about ethical sourcing and all that.
Exactly. These days, people want to know about the farm their food came from, how it was grown, all of it. And they're willing to pay more for it, too.
Makes sense. It's like, would you rather buy a perfectly good avocado from some huge supermarket chain or a locally grown one from the farmer's market? It's a tough choice.
Right, and that's the thing about this job. It's becoming so multi-layered.
I'm seeing that. It's not just about knowing your produce. It's about understanding the whole story behind it.
Totally. Sellers aren't just vendors anymore. They're like ambassadors connecting the dots between the field and our kitchens. And being able to do that well, that's what really makes a difference.
Okay, I'm sold on the fascinating part.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the challenges? This guy doesn't just paint a rosy picture, does it? Like, what are some of the downsides?
Well, yeah, you're right. It's not all sunshine and perfectly ripe watermelons.
Figured as much.
The guide's pretty upfront about the fact that there's a lot of competition in this line of work.
I bet. And it's not just your local supermarket anymore, right?
Let it.
So you're saying it's a tough market to break into.
Yeah, it can be.
What does that mean for someone just starting out? Let's say Sarah's ready to jump into the fruit fray. How does she make her mark in this whole big world of produce?
That's where it gets really cool. See, this guide makes it clear that it's not enough to just know your stuff,
Yeah.
You got to have more than just, oh, this is a honeydew melon. You got to be a little bit of a salesperson, a little bit of maybe even like a showman,
Oh, showman. Now I'm picturing Sarah juggling grapefruits and doing magic tricks with melons.
Well, maybe not that far.
Okay.
But it's about more than just the transaction. You have to really create an experience.
Right, so how does Sarah do that?
It's all about passion, right? Like imagine her talking about where the fruit came from, maybe doing some taste tests with different apple varieties or even workshops on how to make the perfect fruit salad. She could be like a guide.
That's a pretty cool image.
Yeah.
But the guide also talks about some of the not-so-fun stuff.
Right, of course.
Like working long hours or dealing with demanding customers. How does Sarah handle that part of the job?
Yeah, you're right. It's not always going to be easy. This guide actually says you'll probably have to work weekends, holidays, you know, all the times when people are buying a ton of fruits and veggies.
Right. That makes sense. And then there's got to be some seriously picky customers out there,
Oh,
right?
I'm sure.
Can you imagine the stress of trying to pick out the perfect watermelon only to have someone complain it's not sweet enough?
I know, right? The guide says you got to learn how to just stay calm and turn a bad situation into a good one.
Okay. So, like, how do you do that? Offer them a free mango.
Maybe. Maybe Sarah could offer to pick a different watermelon or give them some tips on how to ripen fruit at home. Or yeah, why not throw in a free mango, right? Keep them happy.
I guess a free mango solves a lot of problems. Oh. Okay, so when Sarah's not out there working the crowd or, handing out freebies, what else is she doing? What does the guide say about the other parts of the job?
Well, there's this whole other side, which is all about inventory and making sure nothing goes bad.
That makes sense. No one wants to buy wilted lettuce. So how does Sarah become, like, an expert in not wasting food?
You got to be good at rotating the stock, making sure the older produce is sold first and stuff like that. And it really helps to know when certain fruits are in season.
Oh, right, like when's the best time to buy strawberries versus, I don't know, pomegranates?
Exactly. And keeping up with trends, too. Like, what's the hot new superfruit everyone's talking about?
So she's not just selling fruit, she's like a fruit connoisseur.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, but all this hard work, all this passion, it's got to pay off eventually, right?
The question, isn't it?
What does the guide say about how much money someone can actually make selling fruits and vegetables?
Well, it says that even though starting salaries might not be that impressive.
There's potential to, like, move up the ranks and make some serious bank.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like as Sarah, our rising star, goes from entry level to, running the whole show, she could be making some serious money, especially if she gets bonuses for good sales or a share of the profits.
Okay, so it's not just a passion project. There's, like, real business opportunity there. But we were talking about the interview process. What kind of questions are they going to ask someone who wants to be a fruit and veggie seller?
Well, it's not all. What color is a banana?
Okay, good, good.
It's more about seeing if you're really into it, Can you handle problems? Do you actually like talking to customers? That kind of thing.
Right. Got to make sure you can deal with the rush hour crowd looking for their kale smoothies.
Exactly. There's even this example question in the guide. It says, how would you help a customer who's totally overwhelmed by all the different apples? Like you have to do more than just point at the Granny Smiths.
Right, so what's the right answer there? Give them a crash course in apple varieties.
Well, it's more about showing you can listen, ask good questions, maybe even offer them a slice to try.
I'd be down for that. Okay, so we've talked about this a lot. It's not just about the produce itself, it's the experience, right?
Totally.
But what about all those industry trends? Like, how does Sarah stay ahead of the game when it seems like there's always something new happening in the food world?
That's when you gotta really love learning. The guide says the best sellers are always trying to learn new stuff.
Oh, okay. Like, what, going to fruit conventions, reading all the latest articles on organic farming?
Yeah. Or even just talking to the farmers at the market.
Soaking up all that juicy knowledge.
Exactly. The food world is always changing, so you gotta keep up.
This has been great. We've covered a lot about selling fruits and vegetables, and it's way more interesting than I think either of us expected.
I know, right? It's not just about stacking produce, it's a whole thing.
It really is. So for all of you listening, the next time you're picking out the perfect avocado or debating between mangoes, take a second to appreciate the people behind the counter. There's so much more to it than meets the eye. And hey, maybe strike up a conversation with them. You might be surprised what you learn. Until next time, happy eating, everyone.